Today an extensive review of the all-new Jeep Compass. Here the new European version will come in this form later, than probably also to the North American market, and we'll have it today here in different versions. For example, also the very latest 4xe version, the true all-wheel drive version. And yeah, you know, a Jeep should always have all-wheel drive, right? So this one here, the all-electric one, with one electric motor in the front, one electric motor in the rear, biggest battery, most power, 5.4 seconds in the acceleration figure. That's not the only version we're going to examine here today. We will also compare it to another version. This is here the Compass as the plug-in hybrid, to serve as many needs as possible here for our viewers. So we're starting here with this exterior and then hop over to the new electric 4xe version. Everything of that with Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the Jeep Compass updated styling here in the front, with this mimicking the past Jeep grille, but then in a more aerodynamically closed shape. This here also a daytime running light in the top part. Looks pretty cool actually, and the opening here for the combustion engine is then here in the lower part. Here talking about the original Willys Jeep front grille. So full of Easter eggs, this vehicle, exterior, interior. It will be also carried on throughout the review. For example, here also in the front windscreen we have this forest adventure style and so on. Length 4 meters 55, 179 inches, so compact dimensions. 18 to 20 inch wheels. These are the 20 inch wheels, and once again also in the wheels we have these original Jeep Easter eggs. I think it's a very cool modern styling here for the Jeep Compass. This darker blue color is also a very elegant one. And in the rear we have also a modern signature from the lights, and the Jeep logo is also illuminated. Looks of course even more spectacular at night. And this is, by the way, the Summit trim. Also has here this silver contrast in the lower part that fits very well to the blue. As for engines, on the North American market you get the 2-liter 4-cylinder, and in the European market, also elsewhere, you would start with the inbuilt hybrid, or like it's a mild hybrid, 1.2-liter 3-cylinder. 0.9 kilowatt hour is the small battery there, and then goes further here with the plug-in hybrid. That is a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder, 225 horsepower system output, and this one then has an acceleration figure of 8 seconds. Soon all the details to all the electric versions, which will be 3 different electric versions there are available. First of all, here to the plug-in hybrid. This one has a plug-in hybrid battery of almost 18 kilowatt hours, and we had the pure electric consumption then, I can already tell you so far, of about 21 kilowatt hours and more kilometers. So that means purely electric you can do 80-90 kilometers, so about 50 miles. Later on then more also to the consumption when you don't have charged the battery, or in the mixed consumption and so on. It's very important here also to talk about the charging of this plug-in hybrid. Soon then more to the charging of the EVs as well, because charging sounds already quite slow with 7.4 kilowatts. AC charging is the big flap here on the driver's side. However, it's one phase, and that means at home at your normal wall box it will only do 3.7 kilowatt. It's almost just like a normal household plug. So it charges forever. However, you can say the usual case is that you actually plug in when you come home, and the next day it's full anyway, even if it's charging slowly. The 7.4 you can then reach when you are at a public charging station, for example. So, and while this is the plug-in here in the Summit trim and with 20-inch wheels, we have here then the all-electric one, the 4xe, and in the Overland trim. This is a special off-roadish trim, and you can already see it in the front bumper. So we have a better ascending angle, 27 degrees. Then we also have 10 millimeter or 1 centimeter higher ground clearance. In the rear here, the descending angle is 31 degrees. This Overland also has the special wrap here on top, so that there's less glare, reflections and so on while off-road driving. And yeah, there are once again also some small Easter eggs. For example, here, there's like on this black wrap, there's again a small Willys MB Jeep here on the top. Then we Oh yeah, and there once again the camping stuff here on the mountain peak. Then We have 19-inch wheels, of course a little bit more suitable than for off-road driving than the larger streets, and they maybe bring some more comfort. I'm really looking forward to the driving part. We'll first drive the plug-in, then the electric one, and see are there any comfort difference, because this one of course carries more weight. And then there are two different battery sizes. It starts at 74 kilowatt hours front wheel drive. And this one here, the 4xe version, is always connected to the bigger battery at 96 kilowatt hours. However, this big battery is also available again in the front wheel drive version, so you can actually pick that. Yeah, and then you can see visually here, once again the same illumination. Then you have the hook here for the off-road trim. Yeah, and then it's also like here, like the under plate, you know, like the skid plate is against scratches from the underbody, rear, and the front is also then special in the Overland trim here. And as for charging, they give official figures 20 to 80%, and it's 31 minutes for the small battery, 27 minutes for the bigger battery. Why? They have the same 160 kilowatt DC peak, but this one, obviously, the bigger battery holds it a little bit longer, the 160 kilowatt peak. Yeah, so and let's see if we can also attest to that later on. AC charging is 11 or optional 22 kilowatt. And of course, we're gonna check, does this have a frunk or not? The all-electric version. Let's see. Wait a minute, is this the EV? That looks like an engine cover, but yeah. Source, trust me, bro. This is the electric one. So, I mean, I don't want to, like, you know, tear it apart, but trust me, this is the all-electric one. But yeah, visually it really looks like it, and yeah, it doesn't have a frunk. Maybe a little bit of space is there. Yeah, because there's always a question like, where you store your cable? Now to the interior. First of all, the door closing sounds solid. Sounds good. Yeah, rear not so, but the front is actually very nice, like deep sound, so to speak. The key fob is classic PSA style, just has a Jeep logo actually, but appreciate to have the classic door handles. Then inside of the doors, this being the Summit trim, also soft touch here and here. Could be a little bit softer for the elbows, though underneath classic window control and also side mirror control, hard to pack in the lower part. This one's also equipped with these rubber floor mats. Oh, turtles. I like turtles. Yeah. Steering wheel here, you do have some feedback, but it's one button design. The steering wheel itself is a nice soft leatherette here. By the way, more Easter eggs with the Willis MB Jeep here, the silhouette on top there, and here the since 1941. Yeah, all of course goes back then to this military grade Jeep. Then you have the instruments deeply hidden, integrated, but that's why they also don't collect any glare. Also some stitches here on the dashboard. Seats, you have standard fabric seats, you have a fabric leatherette mix, and this is the full leatherette in the Summit trim, gray on the top. Then here is also with perforation. There might be a more classy material meanwhile, but it's animal free, and it is rather the sturdy version that you can easily clean and wipe. And the good thing is this one's not only heated but also cooled. And it's very good that you can always stay, you know, cool and dry in any season. And of course, heated and heated steering wheel also, so you have all the luxury feature then here. Then steering wheel in and out, manual. Yeah, that moving could feel maybe a little bit better. But the good thing is that you have the upright, comfortable SUV seating position and also enough headroom with 189/602. Welcome to the cockpit of the Jeep Compass, here with this widescreen format of the screen. Still some physical dials, like here the volume jog, and then you have some hotkeys here in the lower part, for example, to access the climate, where you can also activate the seat cooling or the seat heating. It does take a while, however, to switch from one menu point to another, gotta say that. Then some cubby holes here, open one in the top part, glove box, quite spacious actually. closed here, but on top 2 USB-C chargers, one for connecting, one for charging. Then a lot of space underneath, cup holders in a 4-dot design. Then you put in the gears like this, drive and reverse. Here is for the drive modes. You can also go to the off-road modes, for example. This one here, the plug-in hybrid, only front-wheel drive though. Nice animation. This is an inductive charging pad. It's also ventilated and softer for your elbow. More space underneath for all kinds of clutter actually. And this one is not equipped with a panoramic roof, by the way. Black ceiling from the inside. And yeah, as I said, like the seating position from the comfort is actually the decent one. The overall build quality is maybe not on the highest level, gotta say that as well. And you might also compare it to a Peugeot 3008, which is a platform brother. And sometimes I feel they have maybe here and there some nicer solutions. Then again, they also have special luxury features on their own, like their seat ventilation. That is also special for this, for this one, and also is for this trim here. However, the seat ventilation is also available for some other trims and services too, so you gotta watch out for that. The Summit trim especially has these special floor mats. Look at that here on the right side. There's no turtle, but there are some like rocks and like this topographic surface. And yeah, you can also just take them out and then just clean them with a hose or something. And the cockpit overview here, one more Easter egg with the Willis MB front grille. Then the instruments hidden deep in there, but as I said, that protects against the glare. You can also change through there what you want to see. The same goes also for the head-up display. We have the box right here. And a good trick is also here, when you press and hold this vehicle shortcut button here, then the EU speed chime warning directly goes off. So that is nice to use. Yeah, this would, for example, be the hotkey then to switch to the climate. There you see, sometimes it needs some help that it switches through the things and so on. And here in the top, shortcut to the CarPlay integration, and you can have it then here, but at the same time you still have space for some visualizations from the car itself. And the climate unit is here, plus minus on the left side, all digital sadly. Rear seats, hard pack at the inside of the doors here, everything. This is rather basic build quality, let's take it that way. We have more Easter eggs here, for example, in the lower part. There are some dinosaur eggs on the ground and one is already broken. So let's see where this dinosaur is actually. Maybe we'll find one here. The seats in the rear have the same quality like in the front, also with the perforation, just that they are not actively cooled. Isofix on the outside. Then this one, it wasn't me. That wasn't me either. Here also somewhat adaptive, the cup holders in there, just that they fart a little bit here when you put them in and out. You cannot adjust the seats, it's just like the folding or not folding, that's basically it. And the middle part is also a ski hatch. You have 12-volt charger and 2 USB-C chargers in the lower part. And then, well, when I'm driving as a tall person, it still fits somewhat, not too much legroom. And you see that the rear bench is relatively high than here, and headroom, that is still no problem though. Now to the trunk or the boot, starting here with the plug-in hybrid. We'll soon take a look if it's any different with the EV. Here, this massive top cover. Let's remove it first here, that you can properly see everything. There we go. And then we have the cabin control. It also fitted in easily underneath that, 1.40 meters in width. Then we have 90 centimeters, 35 inches in the length. And then here, this one you can put up. There's also like this one charging cable underneath, but you can also put it in the lower position like this. And in the lower position, then you have a height of here about 80 centimeters or 31 inches. But you could also remove it completely. Then you would have even more height. Let's check it out, y'all, from sure brother. And then we have here like there's almost 1 meter or 39 inches. That's actually quite cool, you know. So you are definitely flexible with that. With folding the seats, you have to go over or do it like this. There we go. And then we have the total length of the seat is, I would be driving of 1.66 meters or 66 inches. Now interior and trim comparison. This here our electric one. You see the white one on the exterior. but it's more about the trim. So this one being the Overland trim here, it's a different interior and pretty cool, I think. This one here has then the brown accentuations here, then the red coverings as a contrast. Also then here a little bit at the dashboard and so on. Steering wheel is the same, and the seats then here in the Overland are with fabric on the inside and the brown leatherette on the outside. And the cool thing is that these are fabric seats, but they are also ventilated. And this is of course the best choice actually for really hot summer days like today, because the fabric is, let's say, like passively breathable, and if you then add the seat cooling, that's even cooler. To the pale skin is also, you know, just feels better actually. So I'm a big fan here of this seat combination. Are you as well? And this one here, this trim is also good with the panoramic roof. There's a shade I can apply electrically, and then there's also here this roof I can actually really open for fresh air. Yeah, that's another comfort feature here. You also have the same styling for the rear seats with the fabric and the brown leatherette applications. Here the back part of the front seat, you have like these, you know, like off-roadish straps to install something, but yeah, I'm not sure if they have really any use in here, or probably just visual stuff. And there is indeed no space compromise, front, rear, or even in the trunk. Here you can see our full luggage setup here in the EV version, and here even in the EV version underneath there's some space and you can put in some cables. Yeah, but that's also the thing. Now we have all the luggage here and the cables are underneath. That's always a thing when you don't have any trunk. Sport mode. That was 50 kilometers an hour to 130 kilometers an hour. Starting here first with the plug-in hybrid of the Compass. So the acceleration figure 0 to 100 is about 8 seconds-ish. So it would be equal to the pure front-wheel drive electric version in the acceleration figure. That is interesting. With the all-wheel drive electric version, at 5.4 seconds. I put it here to the sport mode, as I just said, and what you did realize is when you were really pushing it, really RPM max all the way out, there were here and there some rattling noises on the interior. It's like, I'm not sure, like from the dashboard or something like that. And yeah, the engine also does feel aggravated a little bit. Gotta say that. I have to say, I've been driving this car now for a longer period of time, already before this filming of this driving part, to get more experience in before then, you know, I can report that to you. And I haven't experienced it in that way before. I did not like push it all the way through. So this is only happening when you push it all the way through. Not the most pleasant experience, honestly. But in all situations I have driven before, I did not do the full kick down, so I didn't experience it in that way. So, you know, normally you would rather drive it in a smooth way. And when you have it here on the automatic mode, then sometimes the engine also just shuts off when you have here the enough battery left, basically. And I've also been frequently charging it in the plug-in driving mode, in the all-electric mode. It does fairly a good job. 21 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, so like 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So you can really go like between 80 and 90 kilometers pure electric, so like 50 miles something ish pure electric, and that's decent for this battery size and for this plug-in hybrid concept. That's totally fine when you keep it at speeds like this, of course. And when you go a little bit faster, accelerate harder and so on, the combustion engine usually turns in and you don't feel the transitions then so much. Later I can also show you, like when you are rather slow driving, city driving, then you do feel also the shifting in the like in the plug-in hybrid concept. Also, if you are in just electric driving, you still feel the electric shifting quite a lot. Some were asking me earlier, well, is this, that's Ferrari here, is this just a Peugeot 3008 in Jeep disguise, basically? And honestly, in driving, they feel kind of similar, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because it's a decent platform and the Peugeot 3008 drives very well, and it does remind me of that one indeed, and this is actually rather a good thing. The suspension can be a little bit bumpy at times when you are going through potholes. However, here now on the motorway and when the road is kind of like even, then it's actually fine. You know, so it really depends on the... Okay, going a little bit rather to the right here, that Ferrari. So it really depends on the road conditions, but even motorway is totally fine, and it feels actually sporty and direct. And that leads me to another very interesting point, especially when we go like the German Autobahn tests, like these here. It's always very crucial to know what can the cars do, what are they capable of, and also how do the new Chinese competitors perform. And that is something what you feel here. For example, the new Leapmotor C10, which would be the same segment and is, yeah, a little bit cheaper definitely in the price, and actually offers you a better interior experience. But then in driving here, the classic manufacturers, they are definitely better. So this one gives a good feeling for the drive, nice precise steering feel as well, no matter which mode you're actually in. Also just leave it in the auto mode, for example, then it goes back and forth no matter what you need. And especially here the lane changes, you know, it's very confident, very calm in the lane changes, and this is a better handling than with the new manufacturers. And probably at some point they also will catch up as for that, but this is at this point a crucial difference. Noise insulation could be better, could be worse. I would say average overall. Yeah, we'll take it that way. You might also realize that I have to raise my voice here now a little bit at around 120 kilometers an hour, around 70 miles an hour. So the good thing to me is really that you feel it's a well-developed platform and it works, and how the car is behaving is in a very calm way. No matter if you're driving a little bit faster, if you're driving a little bit slower, precise from the steering movements and so on. So is it fun to drive? Definitely yes, it surely is. With the exceptions of when you really push it through, then the drivetrain feels a little bit, you know, stressed out, as we have initially shown to you. And really, like, the playing together with the combustion engine and the electric drivetrain is to me sometimes better at higher speeds and not necessarily at lower speeds. So the thing that you feel most is when you drive really, really slow, and then in the pure electric mode, the car is shifting. That is something that you feel most prominent, basically, which will be a difference then to the all-electric version. But the ride itself, and when you drive it, as you usually drive this vehicle in a rather calm and normal way, the driving is really decent. Blind spot monitor here with a red dot in the side mirror, that's good. And I've also been testing some of the assistance systems. You can activate them here on the left side of the steering wheel. There we go. You can actually click through what you want to have. Drive assist, yeah. So the drive assist. Yeah, that was a little bit too late, but I can show you the drive assist can even also do this semi-autonomous lane change. You can soon show that to you. Other than that, here to set the cruise control, you can set the speed here with your left thumb. Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit. Why is it suggesting 50 now? Okay. Strange. Not sure why I got the 50 kilometers an hour now. Yeah, sometimes strange actually, but it's actually not too unsmooth. Let's take it that way. These assistance systems, the blind spot monitor, like the rest of the Stellantis or PSA logic, is that the dot appears in the time exactly when the car is in the blind spot and not in advance. There's a nice test here always when we're switching motorways from one to another for the agility. So it's definitely a fun Jeep to drive. You don't get like a typical Jeep off-road feeling you rather get the feeling of, hey, it's actually a nice agile ride. Sometimes here when you're in a corner and then you're on the throttle again and have enough battery, you also first feel the electric push going forward before then the combustion engine sets in. So actually I'm having a lot of fun driving it from the agility, like left and right and in the corners and so on. Steering wheel also has this nice leather red material. It's a good grip on the steering, so that's nice. And I also, why I say yes, told you earlier, there can be better material on the seat itself. It's very sturdy, can be cleaned easily. That one was going left quite a lot. And you always can activate the seat heating or seat cooling, so you're always perfectly fine in any climate. At the moment I've just slightly activated the seat cooling, so it's also keeping me fresh and cool than here in these seats. And see, whoa, crazy things are happening on the road here today. People are going all the way topsy-turvy basically. Not sure what that is all about. Not a special day here on the German Autobahn. Here now, let's go a little bit quicker, then we can go 120 kilometers an hour as it's allowed right now. Here also a little bumpy in the road. Then you also feel that you don't have like an adaptive suspension technology and so on. You'll be fine. But you cannot expect like a super soft driving Cockpit or something. And you can also set the cruise control in 120 kilometers an hour, 70 miles an hour is also a nice cruising speed here, definitely. No matter. So let's go here. I just want to fall back a little bit, that I can also show the semi-automated lane change. There we go. Though I did nothing myself, this was all the car, and that is well done. So updates here for the assistance systems, and that is a very elaborated choice. Oh, there's a Jeep Avenger. Jeep Avenger is new small one. There's a Jeep Renegade actually. Before the Avenger came, the Renegade was the smallest one. There it is in white. Pretty iconic car as well. Was at the same time some were saying, it's not so much Jeep, but yeah, that's always the discussion, of course, especially when a Jeep is not built in the US. Here now signals me unlimited Autobahn speed. Can go for a little bit more right here. And yeah, now it's mixing a little bit, giving me some EV boost and also combustion engine RPM. And when I'm not hammering it all the way through, it's actually also fine, And at 120 kilometers an hour, you also feel that before was really crossing against the wind. Now it's maybe not that loud as we were before on that other motorway direction. Up to 140 kilometers an hour, I think it's still okay, but there are definitely also more silent competitors out there. And as I said, it does feel similar to the Peugeot 3008, but I really don't think that's a bad thing, because that makes it quite nice and fun in the handling overall. Here, I also want to show you here some non-Autobahn driving here, for example. It's actually also fairly agile when you drive it like that. So that's another thing where I say, hey, it's okay that it's related to the Peugeot 3008, because it then kind of feels nice and agile, So that's actually pretty cool. Here sometimes, when... it's interesting. So when the engine was still on, and then I was reducing the speed, then it's sometimes not that smooth. But it's smoother actually when the engine is already off earlier, when it's only in the pure electric driving mode. But that's something, like when you're reducing RPM, then approaching the next traffic light. But here's also a good situation. You now locally emit less emissions, because now we are again in this electric drivetrain, and we can also then smoothly start. Let's see how from shifting. Yeah, you feel transition a little bit, but yeah, that was nice. Now maybe there are, when you give it a little bit more throttle or something, that you feel more from that then. But it's actually nice to drive it around then with the pure AV mode, especially in these low. It's actually even there when you are reducing speed. It's worth when the combustion engine on, but also when the electric drivetrain is on, that it sometimes does maybe it's like second to first gear, something like this last hop. That is sometimes a little bit unpleasant. And here now also this shifting. Look at that. Now the combustion engine went on. We had 42% of the battery, so it always depends on the state of charge and also the driving mode you are in, like when the combustion engine is hopping on and when you're driving in the full electric mode. Here now, when it's a little bit bumpy, that was said earlier, then the suspension you feel, okay, it's no adaptive suspension and so on, and you have the large wheels here also mount on that car. Then it sometimes can be like, maybe it could be a little bit smoother from the driving. Yet again, you have a direct and crisp driving feel, so it's more like this sporty Jeep driving experience. And yeah, look at that here. Like also, especially when you accelerate out of a corner, then you always feel this electric boost, and that's actually a cool, fun thing to do. So looking forward to how it is in the comparison, the plug-in hybrid also with the electric drivetrain. And now the electric one, 4xe, all-wheel drive, sport mode, acceleration here on the private road. Woo! Yeah, that's rally racing then here in the Jeep Compass. Nice. Sportiest, quickest version here of the Compass. And we didn't like fully carry through, but it would be 5.4 seconds then here in the all-wheel drive version. So yeah, that's something. We can of course also go back to the auto mode because we don't need like the the sporty setting all the time. Of course, if you pin it through the throttle pedal or the accelerator pedal, then you're also fine and also get a full acceleration boost. Apple CarPlay integration here like this because the screen is really, really long. Now you also have the camera on top there because this one has the panoramic roof. You can also see the impressions right here. Yeah, of course, also Leah is better in the screen. Beautiful. Here, what I want to say is here that the maps are here, and you could still have some interface of the rest of the car. That's of course something as well. And the big question is, of course, electric versus plug-in. Which one drives better? How are the differences? And also here we have 19-inch wheels, but more weight. And with the other one we have 20-inch wheels, less weight. Of course, the plug-in battery also weighs something. Yeah, but it is still, of course, different. And I'm also so much looking forward to the German Autobahn part. We had it in the plug-in that the faster you go on the German Autobahn, the more like the micro vibrations really got through to the vehicle. So I wonder if that's the same or not with this version right here. What you directly realize is the transitions between the drivetrains in the plug-in hybrid, like electric and then combustion, were not so smooth. And also because you have that gearbox, when you sometimes were like slowing down and then there was like a downshift, that was not the smoothest experience. Here now with the EV version, no matter if you have small or big battery, no matter if front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, everything else, of course, super smooth. One gear, that's it. And yes, you can drive it very powerful, but if you can, and if you're able to control it, you can also drive it super smooth. Here, by the way, you can also, with the shifting pedals, then decide the recuperation, 3, 2, 1. Like when you go off the throttle, if it's just slightly or if it's like really, 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 really strong. And let's see, there's no one behind us at the moment. In the strongest recuperation setting, it does not go to 0. However, there's one button here you can activate, and this is indeed a one pedal driving button here until 0, and then you accelerate again. You cannot adjust it here then because this is then always the strongest. So the strongest recuperation together with real one pedal driving, and you can just choose if you like to use that or not. Look at that. Front wheel drive and then attention. There we go. See, like when I really push it, then there also is then the rear wheel drive. But you see that in normal situations and when I'm just steadily going for it, rather the front electric motor is engaged and not the rear one. No, that's also interesting to know, but definitely can already say smooth driving experience. Is it also calmer overall? I would say so far. So calmer, smoother experience. I really like the fabric seats are also in the Overland trim. That is of course trim related, but they are more comfortable. And for the summertime, in combination with the seat cooling, of course, the best choice there. The braking is also nice to control. I mean, recuperation is happening there, but overall, a very nice and smooth feeling of the car. So far, here on the countryside road, I do not feel that there would be any very negative effect due to the weight. Let's see now, 90-degree corner. I'm also not too slow. I would not say that it drives much heavier than the plug-in hybrid. I mean, due to the throttle response, that feels then actually a little bit lighter because you just have more power with this one. You know, like here I check, is this can I drive? And then you can easily accelerate out of this corner. And by that, because you have more power, it feels more agile. And in that way, it feels lighter, at least in the acceleration, because it just has this much more raw power there. But here now in braking and in cornering, I would even say it feels more balanced in a way. Let's see now, yeah, do next some S combination here. How do you feel?
Fine.
It's fine. But would you say it's better or in a plug-in hybrid? Or similar? Similar. So Leah says similar. So me as a driver, I don't know. I feel it's somehow better. We had that, for example, also with the BMW iX5. Is that? Oh, okay. Because sometimes when you have more weight, it also changes then how the suspension is reacting, and the suspension settings are, of course, always a little bit different. And yes, of course, for very, very tight cornering, less weight will always be better. It's just physics. But then again, when running straight and also on the motorway and so on, it can sometimes be better that the car feels a little bit more planted, and also depending on the weight distribution, for example. So that one is, of course, also changed then a little bit. But here, driving through some rural areas and so on, feels actually quite cool. So me as a driver already, I can say I definitely prefer the EV version in driving. Just a smoother ride, yet again more powerful. Yeah, sometimes we had that with the plug-in hybrid as well from suspension. It can be rough in some potholes and also from the booming noise. So I would say that is the same plug-in hybrid EVs, that you have some booming noise sometimes from the rear axle there. Yeah, I can go right here again. But overall more agile feeling here, and yeah, I just have a lot of power here with that EV version. So don't want to stress out the air too much. Really be gentle with the throttle. You can of course also go into maybe like snow mode. That would be then slower, for example. Could also use that one for the advantage of the passenger. Yeah, maybe about that. So good impressions here from the EV version so far. Looking forward even more how it scores then on the motorway. And it's time for the German Autobahn with the 4xe, the all-electric, all-wheel drive version. Let's see here from 60 to 120 or something like that. Let's go. That's it. I could have gone through the 130 even. Let's do that. Yeah, that's of course a massive power difference. So yeah, the biggest difference, especially if you have the all-wheel drive version, massive power difference, especially when you are going onto the motorway and accelerated out. So this would be one of the most significant things, and yeah, the calmness and the refinement of the whole drivetrain definitely. And now, since we have more weight, how does it fare on the motorway? I mean, we can do some lane change here. Probably would say similar. Maybe I would say here then with the 19-inch wheels, it feels a little more off-roadish, but might also be the tires itself. That's maybe one thing. But here, negative or positive effect that we have more weight. Does it feel different to you, the plug-in? Does it feel more planted? Similar?
Yeah, I think similar. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not a
similar.
huge
Not a huge difference, I would say. Maybe at some point later we can also try out like really high, super high speed again. But I would say it's maybe a little bit calmer, but not the biggest difference. But here that you can easily accelerate it out makes it really easier. So yeah, the whole concept of the vehicle just seems more thought through, and the plug-in hybrid drivetrain honestly is also, I mean, doesn't charge that quick as well. I mean, for some it can be the useful one, but maybe it will rather go in the direction that you either go then for the pure combustion engine or the MHEV, the mild hybrid, or then directly to the electric one. I have to say, as a driver, it's more likable to drive, feels more direct, but at the same time, you can drive it in a smoother way. So if you have the possibility for the charging infrastructure, think I would go for this one here. So which one would we pick? What's the consumption, efficiency, range and so on, and what are the prices? Well, here for the plug-in hybrid, said earlier, 21 kilowatt hours, small kilometers. For the pure electric consumption, so 80, 90 kilometers, about 50 miles, pure electric. And then if you go more for a mixed consumption, it has like a fuel economy of 6 liters per more kilometers, so 39 mpg US and 47 mpg UK. If you drive with battery depleted, the plug-in hybrid, the combustion engine will rather go for 8 liters per more kilometers, 29 mpg US and 35 mpg UK. Pricing starts with the 3-cylinder around 40,000 euros. The plug-in hybrid, also with some equipment, then goes toward 53,000 euros. So it starts 43, but then 53 with full spec as it stands here right now. And then you go towards the electric versions, and with all-wheel drive, the new 4xe almost tops 60,000 euros. However, then plus all possible extras, panoramic roof, seat massage and so on. Here our Overland 4xe all-wheel drive vehicle, full spec, all options, also head-up display, is then 67,000 euros. Super interesting right here in comparing here the electric version to the plug-in hybrid. Of course, this one here has more punch, better acceleration, this is the main difference. And you don't feel a negative effect of the weight or something, of the additional weight, and maybe even a little bit more planted due to that on the motorway, and of course smoother because there are no transitions. So if you drive it calmly, you can drive also way smoother here with the all-electric version. And price-wise, they're also not so far apart actually. So this one here now with our efficiency test was the 96 kilowatt hour battery, the big one, and the all-wheel drive. I mean, look at the vehicle. It's clear that it's not the most efficient one, and especially also here in this off-roadish trim. And good temperatures though, so 29 degrees Celsius, so 85 degrees Fahrenheit, very warm. That is good for the electric vehicles. And here we scored at 100 kilometers an hour. We scored 19 kilowatt hours and 1 kilometers. That's 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, would mean a real world range then in that case of 500 kilometers or about 300 miles. And then at 130 kilometers an hour, 80 miles an hour, we scored some 24 kilowatt hours and 1 kilometers. That's 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour. At that speed, then a real world range of 400 kilometers or 250 miles. You can work with that because the battery is large. At lower temperatures, of course, it will be a worse result. It is not an efficient EV, yeah. I mean, look at all these like off-road design features and so on. But due to the large battery, you can still work somewhat here with that range and can very well use it still, you know, also for longer journeys. However, also pretty slow in the charging overall. That counts for the EV and also the plug-in hybrid model. So in this case, you know, it was different in the past, you know, because of the, you know, American brand and so on of Jeep. But since this one is built in Europe, the Avenger also built in Europe. You can also see a review of that one here on our channel. This time the North American market gets the all-new Compass later. If that's the case, then very soon we'll also follow up on that, and so you can already get an extensive insight here of the European Compass when you're from the North American market. And if you can already buy it right now in your market, tell me which one would you go for, which version, the electric, the plug-in, or maybe the pure combustion like the mild hybrid one and so on. Tell me in the comments and why, and see you at our next videos.